the 40 centuries that watched Napoleon. On July 21st, 1798, a short, ambitious general from Corsica stood before his dusty, sun-scorched army in the shadow of the Pyramids of Giza. The air was thick with heat and the distant thunder of hooves as the Mameluke cavalry massed on the horizon like a storm about to break. Napoleon Bonaparte pointed to the ancient stone giants, monuments that had already stood for 1,000 years when King David was said to have ruled Jerusalem, and uttered one of history's most stirring battlefield addresses. Soldiers, from the summit of these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you. It was a masterstroke of morale, to be sure, but to reduce it to mere rhetoric is to miss something far more profound. In that single sentence, Napoleon revealed a mind that did not think like a common man. An ordinary traveller, then or now, stands before the pyramids and feels wonder, awe, perhaps a dizzying sense of smallness. But Napoleon did not simply feel the weight of the past. He saw it. He saw, with the instinct of a time traveller, the full, unbroken continuum of the ancient Egyptian empire, a civilization that had ruled not for decades or centuries, but for 40 actual centuries. And in that moment, he understood that his own fleeting glory, his own imperial ambitions, were being measured against an immortal past. He did not look up at stone. He looked into the face of time itself. The literal empire, 4 centuries or 40. First, let us correct a common confusion. Napoleon said 40 centuries, that is, 4,000 years. From the battlefield of 1798, looking back 40 centuries, one arrives at roughly 2200 BCE. By that time, the Great Pyramids of Giza were already ancient. The Old Kingdom had risen and was nearing its end. But the Egyptian Empire, the true, expansive, imperial age, would not peak until the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, which lay roughly 3,300 years before Napoleon. Even so, Napoleon's 40 centuries was remarkably close to the truth. The first pyramid, the Step Pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, was completed around 2630 BCE, more than 4,400 years before the Battle of the Pyramids. So when Napoleon spoke, he was not exaggerating by millennia. He was off by only a few hundred years. In the scale of deep time, that is the accuracy of a seer. But the real power of his words lies not in arithmetic, but in empire. The ancient Egyptian empire was not a minor kingdom. At its height under Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of ancient Egypt, Ramesses II, and Amenhotep III, Egypt ruled from the fourth cataract of the Nile in Nubia, modern Sudan, north to the Euphrates River in Syria. Its armies marched through Canaan, sacked the fortress of Megiddo, a name that entered Western consciousness as Armageddon, and received tribute from Babylon and Assyria. Its influence stretched across the Mediterranean to Crete and the Greek islands. For nearly 1,500 years of imperial rule, Egypt was the superpower of the Bronze Age world. It outlasted every dynasty that ever threatened it. It buried the Hyksos, humiliated the Hittites, and watched the Sea Peoples crash against its borders like foam against a cliff. How the Egyptian Empire shaped the world. That influence was not merely military, it was civilizational. Egypt gave the Levant its first true bureaucracy, its first international treaties, the Kadesh Peace Treaty with the Hittites, circa 1259 BCE, the earliest known peace accord still surviving on clay and silver, and a writing system, hieroglyphs, that inspired the first alphabets. Egyptian art with its frontal-eyed, profile-faced perfection. Its insistence on order, ma'at over chaos, isfet, shaped Phoenician and later Greek aesthetics. Egyptian medicine, which prescribed honey for infections and recognized the pulse as a measure of the heart's condition, flowed into Minoan and Mycenaean healing traditions. Egyptian astronomy, which mapped the rising of Sirius to predict the Nile's flood, gave Greece the seeds of its own celestial mathematics. Even the Hebrew Bible, written centuries after Egypt's imperial peak, is drenched in Egyptian imagery. Moses drawn from the reeds, Joseph's granaries storing grain against 7 years of famine, the Ark of the Covenant, which echoes Egyptian bark shrines used to carry statues of the gods in procession. The Great Library of Alexandria, founded after Egypt fell to the Greeks, preserved the wisdom of the pharaohs for Rome and, eventually, for the Renaissance. When Renaissance scholars first translated the Corpus Hermeticum, believing it to be the work of an ancient Egyptian sage named Hermes Trismegistus, they were, in fact, drinking from a well that Egypt had dug. In short, when Napoleon's soldiers saw the pyramids, they were looking at the ghost of a world empire that had shaped Judaism, Greek philosophy, Roman law, Christian theology, and, through all of these, modern Europe. Napoleon, a student of the Enlightenment and a voracious reader of history, knew this. He had brought 150 scholars, engineers, and artists to Egypt, not just to conquer, but to decode the very civilization he was invoking. He was not merely a general, he was an archaeologist of the possible. Napoleon the Time Traveller, a philosophical turn. This is where Napoleon's true genius, or his strange, almost uncanny gift, reveals itself. Most human beings stand before the pyramids and experience what the philosopher Henri Bergson called Dury, a flowing, subjective sense of time. They feel the past as a weight, a mood, a melancholy. But Napoleon did something rarer. He achieved what the philosopher Martin Heidegger might have called a temporal ecstasy, a standing outside of ordinary time. He did not merely remember the past, he inhabited it. He saw 40 centuries not as a sequence of years to be counted, but as a single, compressed vision, one long, continuous roar of human ambition, power, and endurance. Most generals see only the terrain, the enemy, the next hour. Napoleon saw through time. He had a spatial and temporal imagination that was almost mystical. Standing in the desert, he did not simply see stone tombs. He saw the living empire, priests in white linen, chariots kicking dust, pharaohs being carried in golden chairs, the Nile crowded with grain ships bound for Punt and Byblos. He saw the scribes bent over papyrus, recording harvests and treaties. He saw the temple rituals, the incense rising, the chant of life, prosperity, health, following the king's name. He saw the long defeat of the Persians under Cambyses, the brief glory of Alexander's funeral cortege, the Romans grinding their millstones against Egyptian wheat, the Arabs raising the banner of Islam over the same Nile. All of this, 4,000 years of victory and ruin, he gathered into a single sweeping glance. A common man shows wonder at the pyramids. Napoleon showed recognition. He looked at those ancient stones and said, in effect, "I know you. You are what I am trying to become, and I already know that I will fail, because you have already succeeded for longer than my entire civilization has existed." That is the mark of a time traveller. Not to change the past, but to see it whole. And Napoleon saw. The legend of the King's Chamber. Historians later invented a famous tale that Napoleon spent a night alone in the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber, emerging pale and silent, refusing to speak of what he had seen. He was never the same afterward, the legend says. That story is almost certainly apocryphal. But legends are truths dressed in fiction. The real truth is this. Napoleon did not need to spend a night inside the pyramid to see what it contained. He already saw it. He saw it from the outside, in broad daylight, with 40,000 tired soldiers waiting for his command. And he had the orator's gift to make them see it too. What would a night inside the king's chamber have shown him? The chamber is bare, a sarcophagus of red granite, empty since antiquity, the walls unadorned. There are no hieroglyphs, no treasure, no hidden wisdom, only silence, only the weight of 6 million tons of limestone pressing down from above. A lesser man would have felt only claustrophobia. But Napoleon, had he truly spent that night, would have understood the deepest philosophical lesson of the pyramids. Time is not a river that flows away from us. It is a mountain that sits upon us. The 40 centuries do not look down from the summit as spectators. They press down as judges. Conclusion: the empire that still watches. Napoleon won the Battle of the Pyramids that day. The Mamelukes were scattered. Cairo fell. For a few brief years, France ruled Egypt as a protectorate. But Napoleon knew, perhaps with a sadness that never left him, a sadness that coloured his later defeats at Moscow and Waterloo, that he was only a footnote. The 40 centuries on top of those pyramids did not blink. They had watched Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Ottomans, and now a French general come and go. They will watch whoever comes next. Napoleon's insight was not archaeological, it was existential. He understood that true empire is not measured in cannons or territory, but in the length of shadow it casts. Ancient Egypt cast a shadow 40 centuries long. France, for all its revolutionary fire, would be lucky to cast a shadow 4 centuries long. And for one brief, brilliant moment on a July morning, a man who would briefly rule Europe bowed his head, not in prayer, not in fear, but in a kind of stoic, clear-eyed recognition, to a civilization that had already ruled time itself. The common man sees the pyramids and thinks, how old they are. Napoleon saw them and thought, how young I am. That is the philosophical difference between wonder and vision. Wonder is the emotion of the tourist. Vision is the burden of the time traveller. And on that day in the Egyptian desert, Napoleon Bonaparte became a time traveller. He did not need a machine. He needed only the courage to look up and to see in a single sweep 40 centuries watching him back.